I want to tell you something before we get into this conversation. Every episode of my show, I'm going to do this. Step outside of the interview for a minute and just talk to you, my listeners, all 200 of you for the first episode. And I thank you so much. Tell a friend. I want to talk to you about who I'm bringing to you and why I brought them and what I genuinely think about them, because I'm not a journalist. I'm not a neutral party. And I think you can hear the difference between an interview where the host respects their guest and one where they actually know them, where the conversation has maybe a little bit of history behind it. And Aneela Idnani has a history with me. I think it's been about 10 years now since I met her, and she reached out to me and I took to her immediately. So 10 years, give or take. I remember when we met. I remember this very specifically. I felt immediately comfortable with her, like immediately, which is not my default. I tend to take a minute. I'm someone who takes a while to warm up to just about anybody, who usually keeps a little part of myself in observer mode watching. And I'm also kind of a kook. So people think, oh, this is it. This is the whole package. When I'm, I can feel sometimes so candid that people think, wow, she lets it all hang out. And the truth is, I use humor to give myself the space to figure that stuff out. But I felt immediately comfortable with Anila, and that those patterns that I have, well, they didn't happen. Those habits, something about her just disarmed me. I felt safe. I felt seen without having shared anything with her yet. And I've thought about that feeling a lot over the years, because I think it's actually this thing that she does, not just with me, but with everyone. There's something in the way she holds herself and holds a room that communicates, you don't have to perform here. And, you don't have to be the best version of yourself. You can just be whatever version you've got today, which is remarkable, honestly. And I don't think it's an accident, because here's what I know about Anila. She spent years performing, showing up the way she was supposed to, years, making herself invisible out of shame or confusion, years following a strong, specific rule that said your body is doing something wrong and nobody can know. She has trichotillomania, a body focused repetitive behavior that involves compulsive hair pulling, and she hid it completely. The way people hide things when the shame around those things is so heavy and so unspoken that it never even occurs to you that disclosure is an option. You just comply, you just follow the rule without questioning it. And it's because the rule was never stated out loud to begin with. And I think that experience of living inside a secret for that long, of knowing what it costs a person to hide, I think that's why Anila makes people feel safe. She knows what it's like to need safety and not have it. So she creates it wherever she goes. And that's the thing about Anila that I want you to carry into this conversation. What you're about to hear is not a typical founder story, even though she is a founder. It's not a patient advocacy story, even though she is an extraordinary advocate. It is a story about a woman who really looked at those rules that she was raised to follow, where they came from, what they cost her, what it took to put them down, and then built an entire life around making sure other people didn't have to pay that same price in the dark alone without even knowing there were other people paying it too. So Anila co-invented a smart bracelet called Keen 2. Time magazine named it Best Invention. She's won all sorts of awards. And the premise behind the bracelet is so simple, it almost sounds obvious once she says it. You can't change what you don't know is happening. That sentence is the foundation of everything that she's built. And it's also, I would argue, the premise for this podcast, because we are all in some way running on rules that we did not write. Rules about bodies and productivity and what success looks like and who gets to have opinions and what a woman is supposed to be and what pain means and whether you're allowed to need things and need other people. And most of us follow those rules without even stopping to ask who made them or why or what they actually cost us. And we certainly don't look at ourselves in the mirror and ask ourselves why we perpetuate them, regardless of how unhealthy they may be. Aneela stopped and she asked, and then she did something with the answer. And she is also, and this is the part that gets me every time, she survived her father's death from leukemia and her own diagnosis with breast cancer. And she still talks about love as the most important organizing principle in a life, not despite those things, but because of them. She has had every reason to become cynical or closed off to the rest of the world, or exhausted. And instead, she is one of the most open people that I know. Her memoir is coming in the fall. It's called Anila, Where Are Your Eyebrows? And if that title doesn't make you feel something immediately, I genuinely don't know what's wrong with you. She took the words that shamed her and she put them on the cover of her own book in big letters. And that is a particular kind of audacity that I find deeply compelling. I learned from Aneela, and I mean this literally, that the thing you most want to hide is almost always the thing that has the most to offer, not because pain is beautiful or because suffering is noble. I actually want to push back on that a little bit, and I do today, but because the things we hide are the things we haven't examined. And the things we haven't examined are the things that are running the show. But she examined hers, all of them. So I hope you find this conversation as valuable as I did. I hope it makes you think about one rule you've been following without even knowing where it came from, who wrote it, why it exists. And I hope it makes you feel even a little the way Aneela has always made me feel, like it is safe to leave the performance behind you and be exactly who you are. Here is my episode with my friend Aneela Idnani. Don't tell me what to do. Oh, yeah! My guest today has done something I find genuinely rare. She found the exact spot where her most private pain intersected with one of our most unexamined cultural rules, and she refused to let it stay hidden. She grew up compulsively pulling her own hair. She has trichotillomania. I'm gonna practice that word repeatedly on this episode. A body-focused, repetitive behavior that affects roughly 1 in 20 Americans, making it one of the most common mental health conditions most people have never heard of. And for years, like so many people with this condition, she hid it because the culture around her had very clear ideas about what bodies were supposed to look like and what it meant if yours didn't comply. That culture never explained where those rules came from. And apparently it didn't need to. Rules that powerful don't need explanations. They just need enforcers. And the world has plenty of those. So here's what she did with that. She co-founded Habit Aware. She co-invented the Keen 2 Smart Bracelet, a patented device that uses gesture detection to bring awareness to body-focused, repetitive behaviors, hair pulling, skin picking, nail biting. It's a Time magazine best invention and a Fast Company world-changing idea backed by research grants from the National Institute of Mental Health and the National Science Foundation. She's given a TED Talk. She became a professor of entrepreneurship. She founded BFRB Changemakers, a nonprofit that centers lived experience to reduce suffering and improve access to care. And she has just published a memoir called, and I want to dwell on this title for 1 second because I honestly think it's one of the best titles I've encountered in years. It's Aneela, Where Are Your Eyebrows? She took the voice that shamed her and made it the title of her own story. And that is a particular kind of courage. Is it weird that I'm going through your intro and I'm choking up a little? I am. It's like making me emotional. So through trichotillomania, through losing her father to leukemia, through her own experience with breast cancer, she has learned, and I'm quoting her here, that pain has purpose and that meeting life's challenges with love is life's greatest accomplishment. And we're going to test that idea today in the best possible way. Aneela Idnani, welcome. I am so grateful and glad that you are here.
Nancy, thank you so much for having me. I listened to the first podcast and I was like, this is amazing. I'm so glad that you're doing this and feel really, really honored to be part of it. anything you do, I want to be part of because I just love what you do in this world here in Minneapolis and beyond, all the things that you do. And honestly, yeah, I even when you were just reading that, like I think I might have written some of that and sent it to you, but you definitely
Yep.
added your own of own flavor, and it actually hearing it back is just, want to dust myself off a little bit. It's been a hard journey, but every time it feels really good knowing the difference we're making in the world. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's really emotional because I think so few people, I think entrepreneurship is often inspired, and your journey has certainly been inspired, but it hasn't been without suffering, and not the kind of suffering we often refer to when we talk about how hard it is to be a person in business, starting your own business, a different kind of suffering. And I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but I think it's important to note because you are a person that I never receive as someone who is suffering or has suffered. You do not move through the world with victim energy. And that's not to say that, people who suffer don't get to, carry that or don't get to be in it. But you just always strike me as someone who is so positive and so engaged in the world around you. And I have such huge respect for that. Can I dive into some questions that I have for you? And
absolutely.
here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that you take us anywhere you want to go because I want to explore. I mean, so much about your career has been about breaking rules, has been about avoiding, ignoring them, and writing your own. And and I think that's so important. But I want to start, if you're okay with your book. The title of your book
Yeah.
is Anila, where are your eyebrows? Which means, in my mind, that question came from other people's mouths before it became your question. And I kind of want to start there. Growing up, what did you believe would actually happen if you didn't hide it? Where did that belief come from? Family, your community, something else? Teen magazines. Do people even still know what those are? But what did you believe would happen if you didn't hide your secret?
Yeah. So growing up, I started hair pulling in my early tweens. I actually started pulling around, it's very fuzzy, but I started pulling my pubic hairs to start. So like puberty was definitely part of it, right? This like new thing. And it felt good to get those crinkly hairs. And then I also remember watching a show in science class, like one of those, sciencey shows where the teacher would roll in the VCR and we would, sit and watch that. And it was around microscopic creatures. And one of the segments was on the mites in your eyebrows and your eyelashes. And so I started sort of like playing with my eyebrows in that moment. And growing up, I'm a first generation Indian American, Indian being from India. And so, I'm like hairy and bushy eyebrows and things, so sort of got, like, interested in that area of, like, "Oh, I need to tweeze this." Where did that come from? Where did that idea of my eyebrows are bushy come from? That's, like, I think, the cultural aspect of stuff is when you're growing up in a town where what you look like matters, and so that's where it started, and I think not just a town, but that's our culture, right? And you look at women, their mark on this world is how beautiful they are, unfortunately. There's other things that we have, other gifts we have to give, but that's the first thing that people see, and it's your hair, your nails, your skin. And those are
Mhm.
the 3 things that body focused repetitive behaviors really latch onto in that sense of damaging them. And so I hid because I was already in a world where I was different. I had moved to a town in Long Island, New York from another town in Long Island, New York, but they were worlds apart. Like one was a working class town and one was more of a high end town, if you will. And we didn't fit in. We didn't fit in economically. We didn't fit in color wise. We didn't fit in culture wise. And so when you live in a place like that, even the subtlest of messages teach you to fall back, to not let yourself be seen, and to hide, essentially, right? And then you
Mhm.
add in this idea of I'm pulling my eyelashes out, and I can sometimes see people looking at me, like trying to figure out what's wrong with me, but can't pinpoint, oh, it's the eyelashes that are missing because it's such a subtle facial feature. And we didn't have these, crazy mascaras that we have now and magnetic eyelashes that 12-year-olds are running around wearing now. We didn't have that back then. you just start being afraid of what will people think when they find out. And so you hide and you say, "I'm wrong, I'm weird." You start wondering what are people gonna think, and then you start believing the answers to that your own mind is creating. You're wrong, you're
Mhm.
weird, you're ugly, you're never gonna find love, and you just let all of that silence you.
Mhm. And I wanna take a second just to honor the fact that and respect the fact that you too are emotional. So, what I first of all, I wanna say thank you for being willing to share such a vulnerable part of your story, but also I just really want to applaud your courage because you speaking out, you being so willing to carve an entire career out of your experience is saving people's lives. I have no doubt. And I hope that you take some time to recognize that every day because it's huge. It's huge.
100%. That idea of pain is there for us to turn it into something better. And
Mhm,
it took me, multiple times of going through pain to figure that out, but that's sort of what I try to choose to live by, as you kind of acknowledged in the intro of all that. I did want to address the title, Anila, where are
mhm,
your eyebrows? So that yes, like in the back of my head growing up, that question was the question that I feared. It didn't
mm,
actually arrive until my
mhm,
mid-30s, and it was my husband that asked me, and it was with utmost love and
mm,
curiosity. It was right around the time that I was pregnant with my first son, and that was sort of like the catalyst for all of this. I had been pulling a lot. I was working in the ad industry at the time, so like super stressful yet fun and exciting work environment. So all of that combined, plus not sleeping great because of the giant basketball in my belly,
mhm,
um, the hormonal change, I think, again, is a big component of these conditions, but there's not enough research yet to prove what I'm already kind of seeing in our community. So
mhm,
hopefully someone will do that work to validate. Again, I was just pulling like to no end this one night, and I woke up in the morning, looked in the mirror, and both my eyebrows were gone. And I
mhm,
jumped up, went to the bathroom to get my black eye pencil. So from age 12 to age mid-30s, I don't remember the exact age. We stopped counting after a while. I was hiding. Like even Samir did
mhm,
not know. My husband did not know. We had been together for what was that? 2013 for 3 years of marriage plus like 3 years of dating. So almost 6
mm,
years we'd been together and I had hid it from him. And so this was the moment where I ran into the bathroom to get the black eye pencil and he was coming out and he just looked at me and was like, "Anila, where are your eyebrows?" Like
mm,
the most loving, the least like no anger, no negativity at all, just like, "What's going on?" You know?
mhm.
And it was that the secret, I just blurted it out because I had no inkling of a lie to tell in that moment. And so that's, when we were kind of coming up with what should the book title be, it just felt so natural because that question means so many different things. But
Mhm.
for me, it is the catalyst for change.
I love that. When does your book actually come out?
Yeah, so it will come out formally in fall of 2026 and we'll start pre-orders in June, I believe.
I love that. I love that. So everybody that's listening, I will help share it out. Everybody I know is going to help share it out. So you have to pre-order that book because I imagine it's going to be brilliant. So just to clarify, nobody actually said the words "Where are your eyebrows," but you sort of before your husband, 6 years
Mhm.
into your relationship.
Yeah.
So, and you can tell me this is none of my business, but are you saying that 6 years into your relationship was when you revealed to him that you had this condition?
Yeah, I mean, not by choice, right? I was
Right.
caught. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, otherwise I would have kept, like you can even see here there's a little gap, right? I would have
Mhm.
kept just getting my black eye pencil and filling that in and going on with my life.
Mhm.
But in that moment, yeah, like growing up, nobody knew. Nobody, like I didn't tell anyone.
Your parents.
Parents, my dad
Wow.
was it so started in my tweens, then so I was middle school, and then in high school, freshman year, my dad got sick with cancer, so, like, my mom and he were, basically in and out of hospitals, and I was, like, in and out of school, my house, and hospitals, so, like, no one was really, like It was the 90s. We weren't talking about mental health. We were so focused on his physical care, like, no one was paying attention, you know?
Mhm.
I had no shade to anybody.
Sure,
My
of
parents
course.
did everything they could, and they gave me and my sister lots of good stuff, but it just was like, I mean, we parent differently now,
Of
right?
course.
We're, like, on the
Of
floor
course.
playing yet Legos with them and all this stuff, which is actually my dad would totally play Legos with me, but he was, like, a kid at heart, like, just completely
Mhm.
anyway, but yeah, like, there was no one was paying attention, right? Like, at school, I was a fly on the wall, like, "Look
Mhm.
down, just don't talk to me," like, "I don't want anybody to even look at me," and at home, I was alone. I was watching
Mhm.
TV, I was doing my homework, my sister was 6 years older, so she was doing her own thing. So, yeah, so it was almost easy to hide.
Mhm. It was a very different time, and you and I just had a conversation about that recently, didn't we? Wasn't it you and I? I feel like I've had this conversation with so many people recently about how different it was and
Yeah.
how, you're Gen X, right?
I
Are
have
you
no
a millennial? I bet you are a
I
millennial.
don't know. I
Everybody I
was born
talk
in
to.
1981, you tell me what I'm supposed to be, I don't know.
I think you're a Gen Xer.
I feel
I
like I'm
think.
on the cusp
You're, like,
of
right on the
something.
cusp.
Yeah.
I'll look it up and put it in the show
Some days
notes.
I feel like I'm 90. I'm like, "When I was your age."
Yeah. Everybody's younger than me now. That's what I'm realizing. Once you hit 55, literally everybody you meet, you could have given birth to.
Yeah,
So there you
I
go. I
got
could have
that.
given birth to you. That's all I know.
I don't know
I mean, I
that.
would have been,
You couldn't have.
I would have,
You could not
it would
have.
have been like middle school and
You
my
could not.
parents would have been pissed, but I could have. And it would have been like, there are so many questions, but that's
You
a
could
whole
not
other
have.
pod.
I'm 45. There's no way you could have given birth to me.
I mean, I could have, but it would have been I would have been a
It would have
front
been
page
a
story in the mining
different
journal.
podcast episode.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly. I could have. So, um, do want to talk a little bit about your history, your childhood. You touched on it a little bit, but you were born into a culture with very specific ideas about what a woman's body should look like. And I picked that up from the things that I read about you last night. I was obsessed with you last night. What hair means, what eyebrow means, and you've touched on that a little bit. You grew up in America, which has its own overlapping set of rules and equally problematic cultural expectations. Were those two sets of rules ever in conflict for you? And did one make the hiding feel more urgent than the other? Or do you think it was just all an amalgamation of the feelings of inadequacy that you experienced because you didn't live up to these cultural expectations of classic attractiveness,
Mhm.
which I have always struggled with because I mean, I had eyebrows and I was never there. So there you go. But
Yeah.
anyway, to ask the question clearly, do you think those two sets of expectations, those two sets of rules were ever in conflict or not?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So let me just reflect it back to make sure I'm getting there as well. So there's like the American beauty standards culture that
Mm-hmm.
we have to adhere to, and then also sort of like this Indian culture that we have to adhere to. Looking back, I grew up a tomboy. Like
Mm,
you tried to put me in a pink doily frilly dress, and actually it happened once, and I'm pretty sure I tried to lock my aunt in the closet because I was so mad that she came to my birthday party. She came early to the house before we left for the birthday party with a present, and it was not Legos. Like, come on. It was this dress, and, they expected me to wear this dress to my birthday party, and I was just like, "Hell no." Like, "What are you thinking? Like, this is not me." But, obviously, at that age, I can't express myself in that way, so I just kicked and screamed and scratched and, made it difficult until they finally gave up. I think in Indian culture, there is a Hindi saying, which I will butcher because I don't really know Hindi, but it's "Log kya aayenge," something around that. But that basically means what will people say, what will people think?
mhm,
And that is like the constant rephrase. Like, Indian culture is like the foundation of Indian like parenting is guilt. Okay. It's like, what will people think? Like, what do you, like,
mm,
and so there's always that running in the back of the mind. And then there's the, American culture of like, you need to be beautiful in everything you do. And so I was resisting both of those as a tomboy, right? Like,
mhm,
all I wanted was sweats and sneakers and, baseball caps and to play baseball with most of my boy cousins and stuff, and I was pretty much accepted in that world until a certain age,
Mm.
right? And then like it changed. And then it was like, slowly learned to grow into my femininity, but I also just feel like, you know what? I'm going to wear what I want to wear when I want to wear it. If I want to wear a dress one day, cool. If I want to not, that's my choice.
Mhm.
So, it was definitely something that I had to, you know, basically growing up being told who you are from many different sides, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm still figuring it out. Like now in my 30s, my not 30s, my 40s, I'm finally like having fun with how I dress,
Mhm.
like I'm
Mhm.
finally like wearing prints and just, actually enjoying it, like getting back
Mhm.
into earrings and stuff. And I was just on a call yesterday for a new nonprofit board that I joined, and everybody, they asked pronouns, and I'm like, I go by she, her, mostly because that's easy for other people. Like, I don't care. Like, you don't need to know my pronouns. Just talk to me. Just like that's cool.
Mhm.
But in my heart, I'm a they them. In my heart, I'm just a human being. You know,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
physicalness of me is not as important as the spiritual blob of light that's in here. And so
Mhm.
if it's easier for someone to call me she so that we can keep the conversation moving, cool. You
Mhm.
know? Like I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't define
Mhm.
me. And that's one of the things I've had to learn is what other people call me does not define me. I define.
Mhm. Mhm.
That was a tangent, but
First of all, thank you for that tangent. And second of all, if I were in the same room with you, I would want to hug you right now because I very rarely encounter people who articulate that particular question, that question mark about, gender and pronouns in a way that resonates with me. I grew up saying really similar things. I don't feel like a boy or a girl. I'm just Nancy. I'm just Nancy. This is who I don't like to wear girl clothes and I don't I'm not good at sports, like all the gendered cultural stuff that all the cultural stuff that we align with gender was never true for me. But, I was a tomboy too. And I very seldomly hear people say, I don't care. And I don't. I do the same thing. I have they, them, she, her, they, them on name tags for boards that I serve on. I'll put they, them in my Zoom, you know, name. And I do it also because I just touched on the fact that I'm old. And I do it so that younger people, so that I'm sort of implicitly giving permission to younger people to be whatever they need to be. Because first of all, we don't need permission.
yeah.
But something about our culture and the rules suggest that we do. And in order to play nice, people like to fall in line. And I'm not attached to my pronouns. I'm not attached to how people talk to me. I'm not attached to how they think about me. Whatever you need to feel comfortable with me is how I'm going to show up for you. But I really appreciate that answer and that tangent. In your TED Talk, you described, first of all, what is a BFRB? I'm going to let you say
Yeah.
it because.
Yep. So BFRB stands for body focused repetitive behavior. So again,
Mhm.
I think before we started recording, I was joking that we have a branding issue with our mental health conditions. So body
Mhm.
focused repetitive behavior is a long winded umbrella term for these conditions of hair pulling, skin picking, and nail biting, and other.
Mhm.
Like there's nose picking, there's cheek biting, there's lip picking, and the way that it's somewhat medically described, I'm not a treatment professional, but from memory, it's essentially the repetitive engagement of one or any of these behaviors with repeated attempts to stop, resulting in some sort of damage. So, bald spots, skin infections, maybe with cheek biting, there's like bleeding, or nose picking, there's bleeding
Sure.
going on, right? Nail biting, there's, you'll get like very stubby nails, and again, a lot of like skin infection, or people picking at their skin to the point where it opens wounds and things. So repeatedly engaging in the behavior, repeatedly trying to stop, and it's causing that physical damage. I don't like the word damage, but I can't think of a better word.
Mhm.
And so that's the umbrella term, body focused repetitive behaviors. Now, it's a really long word. Wish I was on the marketing team for that one, but it came well before my time in the community. But that's my goal with this memoir, is that people know that acronym in the same way they
Mhm.
they that they kind of know what OCD and ADHD and other things mean and stand for, right? Like,
Mhm.
I know, especially with OCD, it's not everyone really understands what it is. They think they do, but they don't. But at least they have some knowledge of it, right?
Mhm.
And so that's my goal, is that this book helps actually take this very common but very unknown disorder and puts it on the map.
I really appreciate that. 2 things came to mind as you were speaking. One is my mother was a physician, and I talk about her fondly often, but I will say that she taught us, the real terms for like, when I was little, I didn't call my belly button, I called it my umbilicus, and I would refer to that with friends, and so when you say, the healthcare and mental health industries have sort of put on these things, you're absolutely right. And that actually leads me into the fact that my mother used to call me a homosexual. I would say, "Mom, can she's like, "Why? The fact that you're a homosexual?" And I'm like, "Why do you have to say that?" Because it felt like a dirty word. It felt like she
Yeah.
was throwing it at me,
Right.
and she was justifying it by it being the scientific term for what was wrong with me. This was around the time when I was coming out, and that's what she just made me think of. Because initially, as you started to say it, I thought, well, I'll be honest, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, why do we need to understand what that term means? But I get it now because I think we also weaponize language and we weaponize these technical terms, and our culture certainly has done that. And I think that awareness piece is so important. The other thing you just turned me on to, that you just woke up in my brain, and I want to say thank you. And this is something I have never spoken out loud. I have never shared with anybody or talked to anybody about except for my sister. And I just realized. So my father passed away in October.
Mm.
And if you asked either my sister or I, well, in a trusting, safe, closed circle of an environment, what bugged us the most about our father, he was a nose picker. And it was habitual, it was repetitive, there was nothing going on in there, but it made me crazy because he didn't even seem to know that he did it.
Yeah.
And you just
Yeah.
rocked my whole world.
Yeah.
My father had a mental health condition that went undiagnosed his whole life, and he didn't know it, but my sister and I had great shame from it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like the labels are so unnecessary. And so like the good thing with the word body focused or the statement body focused repetitive behavior is that it actually is saying exactly what it is. It's a body
Mhm,
focused repetitive behavior. It's just really a bunch of really long big words. It'd be nice to
mhm,
have like one word to be able to say that, but whatevs. It makes sense. And I like that
mhm,
also that it's not like something that you can say that you are, right? Like
mhm,
people don't ever say, "I am a Cancer," right? They say, "I have
mhm,
Cancer." It's very different than, like, and that's some of the work that we've had to do, like, even I used to sign off very in the very beginning of habit aware, so the medical term for hair pulling is trichotillomania, which, again,
mhm,
that word mania, stems from manic or crazy, and so people don't like that word, for rightfully so, because it's just got such negative connotations to it, but from that word trichotillomania, I would sign off chief trickster on my Habitore emails. And then after a while, I realized, like, I am attaching my identity to my condition, and
uh-huh,
I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that. I stopped calling myself a hair puller because, again, like, if I tell myself I am a hair puller, or I introduce myself in a support group meeting as I am a hair puller, "Hi, my name's Anila and I am a hair puller," my brain is going to say, "Oh, really? We are?" And it's going to start, right? And so I have
mhm,
hair pulling. I no longer have trichotillomania because I no longer meet that medical definition of the distress. So
mhm,
the physical damage, and then the distress, like the mental distress I forgot to mention, which was, I was like, something's missing from here. It's the actual, like, impairment on the life, right? So I wouldn't go to
sure,
pool parties. I wouldn't, I would hide, right?
mhm,
And so language is really important. And when it comes to BFRB, I'm at least glad that it's all words that don't lead up to something negative, if that
mhm,
makes sense, right? Like the word
mhm,
trichotillomania has such a negative connotation to it.
mhm,
So yeah, and yeah, thank you for sharing about your dad. Like I nose pick too. I've to the point of it bleeding multiple times as a kid,
mhm,
and up through, wintertime is always the worst. I don't know why.
mhm,
Winter and summer, I don't know, like all the time. But it's something that, yeah, it's ultimately these behaviors are rooted in self-soothing. So I call them
mhm,
self-grooming, self soothing self-grooming behaviors gone awry, right? So we see this in animal culture with the monkeys, picking the
Oh,
nits
sure.
out of the hair and stuff, and or you see
Mhm.
birds and stuff pulling their feathers out. Like this is natural human behavior to use our body to self-soothe. It's just
Mhm.
going haywire.
Mhm.
So once we understand that, then we can actually shift from the problem to solutions.
Mhm. So, in your TED Talk, you describe BFRBs as trance-like behaviors. Things that happen without you being conscious of them or aware of them. And your entire intervention is built on the idea that awareness is what's missing. And I find that fascinating in the context of what I'm trying to do with the show because what I'm trying to ask people is what are the rules nobody made explicit? Or what are we doing without knowing that we're doing it? Was there a moment when you realized that the behavior and the shame around it were both happening in the same sort of unconscious plane or register? Like that you were hiding something you weren't even aware that you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, that all slowly unfolded over time as Samir and I started talking and learning about the condition. And yeah, when I say trance-like, it's like even when I would get up from my desk, go to the bathroom, get my tweezer to go pull something out, it was not me, right? It was my
Mhm,
reptile brain in control. It was that subconscious brain in control. So that's what I mean by trance-like, is that it's rooted in that fight or flight response, essentially trying to get me back to some baseline, which I don't even know why I've gone off the baseline, right? So unaware of what's going on, just focused on what I'm doing, which is usually working, writing emails. And so one of the biggest moments was a couple of days or weeks after Samir found out. We're sitting on the couch, we're watching anxiety-ridden TV. He loves it. It makes like I can feel my heart pounding with these silly shows, and I'm pulling, because again, like I'm off my baseline. Like I don't like this,
mhm,
but I didn't know I didn't like this, right? Like it's also entertaining, but I'm pulling. So it kind of clicked for
mhm,
me that, oh, those types of shows I shouldn't be watching. Like
mhm,
they're not good for me. So now I watch Nickelodeon with my 9-year-old, and it's so, the slapstick funny. Perfect. Love it. Don't pull. But in that moment, I'm pulling and he notices and he gently grabs my hand. And so that was that first aha
mhm,
moment of, oh, I literally said, I wish I had something that notified me and wrapped my fingers around my wrist like a bracelet. Like I wish I had something that could just tell me when it was happening. And this idea of awareness as the first step to any change, right? Like you can't change anything in your life until you're aware of what is happening, how it's impacting you, your thoughts, everything around it, right? And so when we talk about helping people build awareness with the device we've created, it's not just the physical awareness of, oh, my hands are doing this behavior that I don't want to be doing, but it's also then the inner awareness of why. Why
mhm,
is it doing that? And what can I do instead? And so
mhm,
it's really about mind body alignment that we're trying to
mhm.
teach people.
Mm. I love so your bracelet and your advocacy, your TED Talk, they're all built on this single premise of awareness, and that awareness is what changes behavior, and I totally believe that, but let me push on it a little,
Yeah,
just because this is a podcast, I think I'm
let's
supposed to
do
do
it.
this stuff. I have no idea.
I'm not gonna tell you what to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't do that because I don't know what I'd do. You're far away. So, if this show is about questioning the assumptions underneath our assumptions, what happens to the person who becomes aware, like fully, completely aware of this condition, but still can't stop? Is there a version of how you think about this or your framework where awareness is necessary, but it's not sufficient? And if so, what,
Yeah. So I think the answer I have right now to that is rooted in how I sign off every email. It's with love, strength, and awareness. Now,
mm,
that's not a tagline. That's not an email signature. That's actually our methodology. So, awareness is the
mhm,
first step, right? You have to be aware in order to make the change, right? Like if I'm
mhm,
pulling and I don't know what's happening, there's nothing in the world that's going to make me, disengage, right?
mhm,
But once I'm aware, then I have a choice. So that's awareness is that first part. The
mhm,
second part is strength. So love, strength, and awareness, but backwards. The second part is strength. So the strength to choose to pause. You have to have that. And then love is the last part, which is to choose to pause and. So, like, this is a behavior or a medical condition that is chronic. It is not,
Mhm.
it's like, like I can't tell you to stop wearing glasses, right? Just come on, make your eyes work, right? The way that they're
Mm.
supposed, the way that culture wants, wants it to be. Right? So, it's about retraining the brain to healthier strategies. So awareness opens the door to the choice. Do I want to keep pulling? And sometimes I do. You can see this is starting to grow back in, but that was a few nights ago. And there's a little patch right here in my right upper eyelash bed that's starting to grow back in because I chose to pull those 5 or 6 hairs that now created a gap. But then I chose I don't want to be doing that. I want to take care of
Mhm.
myself. I want to choose
Mhm.
love. I want to replace that behavior with meeting my needs in the moment with something that's going to help me get back to that state of calm that my body is trying to achieve, but ends up putting me in this vicious cycle of why did I do that to myself and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
So I think to answer your question, it's yes, without the next part of it, without the whole full formula, change can't happen.
Mhm.
Awareness opens your eyes to the choice of do I want to continue down this road or do I want to go down this new path? And then you have to summon the strength to say, maybe that's willpower, whatever, I guess we call it strength instead of willpower. Yeah, I'm going to choose here, but by going here, by choosing here, I'm also going to choose a loving action, right? I'm going to choose
Mhm.
love. I'm going to choose what's to do right by me, to meet my needs. And the more that you do that, with these conditions, and I think also in life, your brain starts saying, "Yeah, I like that. I'm going to keep doing that." So
Mhm.
now my hands don't go here to my eyebrows, they just go straight to this weird green drink that I'm drinking because
I
I
wasn't gonna
decided to.
ask,
Yeah.
but I kinda want to.
Okay, I'm at the Coven and they switched to instead of like soda cans of bubbly water, they actually make their own bubbly drinks and put them in the
Oh,
fridge
sure.
for people to try. I still can't figure out what flavor it is, but I was like, I want to try the green one today.
You're
It
it
looks like
looks
I'm
like
drinking pops.
antifreeze.
Looks like I'm drinking mouthwash, but it's actually pretty good.
Alright, good, I'm glad it's good. I was trying to leave it alone. Um, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's shift a little bit to your entrepreneurial journey. You were actually teaching entrepreneurship while you were building Habit Aware. So you were literally teaching the cultural rules of starting a business, being a startup, the founder story, the pivot, the pitch, all of that, while also living a version of that story that was far more intimate and far more painful than I think most startup founders experience or most startup origin stories. Did you ever find yourself teaching a script that you later questioned? Oh, because I think entrepreneurship is wrapped in a lot of what I like to call entrepreneurial mythology. Did the mythology of entrepreneurship sit on top of what you were actually going through? Or were you able to be honest about your experience?
Yeah, so I had the awesome opportunity of teaching entrepreneurship at Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and they gave me a blank canvas and I did what I
Mhm.
wanted.
Nice.
So I hope that those students learned something in that class, but I'm not quite sure if it was 100% about entrepreneurship. The very first exercise was sort of taking my journey, like, and using that as the framework in terms of like, forget just like picking an idea out of out of the thin air and making that a business. Like, I want to know what your problem is. I want to
Mhm.
know what your problem is, and I want to know who else is in that community, and I want to know ideas around that. How might you serve that community? And that's where we started. Again, this idea of pain to purpose, and so that's really where we started. And it was also virtual, so it was a little bit hard and weird.
Mm.
And then I think my breast cancer was, I think, the second time I was teaching.
Wow.
And that was in person. And yeah, though that class probably got the best of me because I totally threw the script out the window and every class was sort of just like, please go do what you want in life. Do not let other people tell you what to do. Cause I was going through my own like, life reckoning. Um and I think that was probably the best class I'll ever teach. I will probably eventually go back to teaching, but after that I kind of stopped teaching too because I had to take care of my physical health.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, your question is around, did I teach entrepreneurship by the book? And I would say no. I taught it by my own personal journey, which has been not so much by the book. I mean, we're not we're small business. Like, I don't like using the word startup. I think even in
Mhm,
Minnesota, I kind of say that Habitaware would not have happened if Samir and I still lived in New York. We moved
mhm,
here 15 years ago. The way that I made friends, I was working in advertising, doing digital production, so understood technical builds and things like that. Couldn't code, but like a creative technologist, if you will, maybe. I
mhm,
don't know, labels. But to make friends here, I started going to some meetups that were in the entrepreneurial arena, right?
mhm,
And so I started just kind of getting that bug. And it was more about, for me, it was more about solving a problem and meeting needs than making money as the first primary objective, right?
mhm,
And I think that there are a number of reasons why Habitaware couldn't have happened in New York. One was Samir and I were just two ships in the night with our jobs. Like, he would get up early and come home at like a normal time, and I'd leave a little bit later and come home at a not normal time because advertising was just like, it's a party all night long, guys. And Minnesota, or at least Minneapolis, the Minneapolis culture, if you just look around, you can see it's not about money. It is about, who can I help? And that's it. Like, that's the ethos that I try to impart on these college students. That, like, to me, I believe that if we focus on who can I help, the money will come. And the money doesn't need to be exorbitant amounts. The money needs to be enough for me to afford, a nice enough living, my kids, whatever. Like, I think that's the most important thing. That's what I wanted to teach, was just help people. Whatever it is, just help people solve whatever problem it is.
I love that. I love that. You built a device out of your own suffering, but not from an engineering background or a clinical credential, just out of knowing your own, and not just, I shouldn't diminish it. Out of knowing your own body in the most intimate possible way. I think medicine has a long history of dismissing that kind of knowledge. Did you run into that in this process as you were, pitching this idea or trying to get backing or grants or funding? Like, did you run into people sort of rejecting what you were talking about
Yeah,
or your
no,
experience?
not in the beginning for sure. So this idea, I wish I had something that notified me. So it's interesting. We started doing research, Samir and I, and we actually found that that idea was not new.
Mm,
It's just that the plant was now seated in us and our vision was different. So we actually found some research of a two-piece device that would alert people when their hand was near their head, right? So I think it was like a
mhm,
necklace and then some other piece on the hand. And so that idea was like starting to be researched. But when it happened to us, I went straight to the bracelet because Fitbit was out and Apple Watch was not out yet, but Fitbit was out. And, I was starting to see on Kickstarter a couple of other different sort of devices. Like, there was one, a belt for posture, for example, the Lumo back that had just come out. So I was like,
mm,
this is technically possible now to know when your body's doing something and send an alert, right? And
mhm,
so, um, and then we were kind of just like, right time, right place, in the sense of the electronics are now small enough that it could be a one piece device. And there's a nonprofit organization in this space, and one of their board members lived here in Minnesota, here in St. Paul, Minneapolis. And we reached out to her and we said, "Hey, we have this idea. You just chat with us." And she was like, "Yeah, this is really interesting. There's been some starting research on it." We actually then went to the conference with devices, really janky prototypes, to test and see what people thought. And
mm,
treatment professionals were coming up to us saying, "We've been waiting for something like this." So it was really exciting. So like, people were like very on board to support within the community that, like, yes, this thing can help. And there's been research that sort of showed um that it made sense, right, to be a tool for this community. Now, I think not having the credentials and stuff sometimes does hurt me, because I know things about the community. Like, I think our company has has talked to and communicated and worked with a number of different things other than the bracelet. We have an online community, we have, our social media, we have our newsletters, that we've started seeing the same stories over and over and over. So, like, the trends and stuff. So it's like, like I mentioned, hormones, for example, right? I hope that that gets studied, because I'm seeing it, you know?
Mhm.
Like, there was some study about pregnancy, and it was, like, essentially the way they did it was by survey, and the summary was, "Okay, further needs research needs to be done," and it's like, "Why are we spending this money?" Like, I'll just tell you, "Yes, go spend money here, go spend money there, go spend money there, because these are the themes I'm seeing, these are the issues I'm seeing." And so that,
Uh-huh.
I think, is hard for people to trust in, and so now it's just like, I wait for the research, and I'm like, "Yep, cool. We knew that already. Thanks for validating."
Do you think the fact that your story was so compelling and so moving, like, did that make it more personal? Obviously, it made it more personal, but more marketable. But do you think the fact that your story was so marketable and personal opened doors that another founder without that story might not have experienced?
Without the story, but the same idea? Or
Mhm.
just in general?
Well, I
Both.
think both.
Yeah.
Both.
I
Yeah, I'm
mean,
curious.
I think humans are emotional, and as much as we don't allow it, we are ultimately heart-centered people, and
Mhm.
so the story, I think, is important. I think it's the way that you connect with people, especially in an environment like this of mental health. Like, I was in the community before I became someone, as a leader in the community, right? Like,
Mhm.
I have friends in the community before this stuff all kind of happened. And so I think that there was that level of trust and that level of, yeah, like that level of, well, that person's one of us, you know? So yeah, I do think that that's an important aspect depending on what the business idea is,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Not everyone goes that route when it comes to marketing, but it's, like, never been marketing for me, so I don't know, like, it's always been a very personal endeavor.
Mhm.
So even Habitware is like, a lot of the stuff we do is more from, like, the heart than from the head, if you will, and I think that might have
Mhm.
scared off some investors early on, like, because I remember sitting in a room once and I was like, "I know the names of our first 50 customers, like, I've met them in person, I know their kids, I'm Facebook friends with them, I'm watching
I
them
love
grow
that.
up," right? And it's
Mhm.
like, well, maybe that's too intimate for but that's just how I
I don't
roll.
know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Actually think that what you've touched on is something I've long believed, and that's this idea that emotional authenticity or vulnerability can function as a sort of currency in spaces that would maybe otherwise exclude certain people or people with just an idea. The idea on its own may not be enough, but the story around it is the reason.
Yeah, I think without the story and just the idea, I don't know, I mean, it's what's the story then? Like,
Right.
why are you doing this, right?
Mhm.
As I
Mhm.
say this, I wonder about the founders of Uber, like, what was their story, you know?
Couldn't
Like,
get anywhere. Was late for
yeah,
everything.
how did they do it without a story? But I remember Airbnb, right? They had some good stories of how they started, and so, yeah, I mean, I guess it really just depends on depends on the person with the idea and what they feel is the best way to connect with the people they're serving.
To look at this a little differently, is radical disclosure its own kind of rule? Like, and I ask that because it's a different script with different sort of enforcement, but it's still a script. Do you ever feel the pressure of that story? Like the expectation that your story has a certain shape or that the memoir will end a certain way, that you're arriving someplace, that you have a happy ending. Are your eyebrows supposed to show up in the end of your memoir because of, how you've crafted the story or stood on this story for your career?
Yeah, I mean, my eyebrows do end up where they're supposed to be for the most part. I mean, I'm only 45 and I'm still making mistakes in life and still learning and still trying to now live with this idea of the awareness to summon the strength to choose love in whatever
Mhm.
I can do. But there's many moments where the brain is overcharged and fight or flight is in control and I can't. And
Mhm.
so how do I learn to have less of those moments?
Mhm.
But my story is mine. I don't feel like, you mentioned radical disclosure and sort of this idea of meeting other people's expectations of where I should be, or I'm dealing with that right now. Like,
Mhm.
I am getting flack for not meeting other people's expectations of me that I didn't know they had of me. I am
Mm,
like in but how can I now have the awareness to summon the strength to choose love? Well, okay, I am aware that now people see me as a leader in this community and they
mhm,
have expectations as we all do of leaders in our communities that they should be doing this and they should be doing that and why didn't they do
mhm,
this and why didn't they do that? But I can also choose to see that I am human and that if they are not going to communicate those things to me, I do not owe them anything.
mhm,
And I choose to love them anyway and to support them anyway. And that
mhm,
might not be looking like visual support, like sharing their Instagram post or whatever it is, but it could just be me saying a prayer for them, which I do daily, and letting go of other people's expectations, right? That was the what will people, that was the refrain that I've grown up with my whole fucking life. What will people think? What will people think? What will people think? What will people say? I have to stop caring
mhm,
if I am going to make it and stay on this earth
mhm,
and continue to do the work that my heart is choosing to do, not
mhm.
what someone else's heart thinks I should be doing. So, that's where I'm
Yeah,
at.
I love that about you. And I guess, when we started this conversation, one of the things I said is that I never experienced you as someone um enmeshed in suffering. And yet, clearly your attitude and the energy you choose is your survival mechanism. It's your strength, it's your purpose. And you've said that pain has purpose, and I think your life is extraordinary evidence of that. But I also want to sit with the underside of that for 1 second. There are people with trichotillomania, I will be an expert at saying that when this is over, who never build a company, who never give a TED talk, whose pain remains painful. And does that frame pain has purpose, risk asking people to find meaning in suffering as the price of being okay?
So, my trichotillomania pain took me down this road of purpose to help others with this device and this innovation and this aha moment. And I mean, since childhood, I've had a desire to be a founder. I've watched all of my Indian aunties and uncles run businesses. Like, that is what I knew growing up. My dad, my mom, like, I knew that growing up. I saw that. That's what I was soaking in as a child, right? Like, I still remember sitting in my uncle's, he was in textiles. So he was making like clothes and designing clothes for Macy's, that kind of thing. Like, sitting in his office looking at all the showroom and stuff like that, right? Like those were the experiences I had. So for me, my pain turned to a purpose of entrepreneurship because that was also in my heart, right?
Mhm,
So when I say your pain is your purpose, you can even look at it as base level. When I pull, that has purpose. That is self-soothing. That is getting me back to baseline. So take that moment to just do that in a healthier way, right? That's one way of just acknowledging my pain has purpose. It doesn't
mhm,
have to be like this big thing that comes of it. It doesn't have to be the way that you choose to serve the world. It just means find the meaning in it. Like when my breast cancer came, and I actually just got flack for this on Instagram because I was in Vegas a couple of weeks ago and we shared the clip of me talking about my breast cancer. So, this idea of love, strength, and awareness, I said, okay, I'm going to use this with my breast cancer. So, I had enough awareness and to summon the strength to say, breast cancer, I'm going to meet you with love in this moment. I
mhm,
saw what happened when I was in my teens meeting cancer with fear. Didn't go well. It was really hard. And I said, not this time.
mhm,
I'm going to meet you with love. I'm going to figure out what purpose you are here for. And at the time, I had my best friend from high school is a now a doctor. I called her up right away. Her sister is a radiologist, so she looked at my scans and stuff. And more importantly, she had a call with me because she's a little bit older than us. Sorry, she's a little bit older than us. Has kids that are a little bit older, and she was just, she said something like, now is the time that you need to look at your plate and clear it to take care of yourself. And I was like, oh, that's what it was telling me. That's what the cancer was telling me,
mhm,
right? Like I had my older son at the time was 8. My younger son
mhm,
was 3, 5. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I was teaching entrepreneurship. I was on nonprofit, 3 or 4 nonprofit boards at the time, habit aware, volunteering at kids' school, and my body said, "Stop, slow the fuck down." And so I listened, and that was taking the pain and making purpose from it.
mhm. Are you what it may I ask you what the status of your cancer is right now?
I I'm cancer free. I'm gonna say I'm cancer free. I
Great. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yep, yeah, I'm gonna say it. I have no idea, but I'm gonna say I'm cancer free. I did what was medically necessary. I got a double mastectomy. I went flat because again, man, woman, doesn't matter. Just wanted
Mhm,
to do whatever would get me back to life as fast as possible. And I was hearing horror stories about reconstruction and having to go back in for surgery and all this stuff. So I was
mhm,
just like, I wanna be done with this, so yeah, and I'm on tamoxifen, which is a hormone replacement no, actually, I don't know what it is. I'm on some medication to help sort of protect from the cancer sort of feeding it, growing, and it was also caught really early, so I was really blessed with all of that. I
mhm.
listened when my doctor said, "Go for your first mammogram," and I was like, "Okay, I'll do what you tell me because 'cause I'm a good girl who does what I'm told."
But do ya, Anila?
Yeah, sometimes. I also got 2 tattoos while I was away, and I didn't ask permission, so that was fun. But yeah. So I'm gonna just trust that as long as I keep listening to my heart, then I don't need the world to come at me. I didn't need the chemo. I didn't need the radiation. And I think it's because 1, it was caught early enough, and 2, it was my attitude. I
Mhm,
listened, and the
mhm.
universe said, "I don't need to blast you."
You're my hero. You're kinda my hero. And I know you wanna reject that, but I just
Yeah.
I hope that when I am faced with, these massive life challenges that I can approach them with the same kind of grace that you clearly approach your whole life with. And yeah, I don't know. Are people born with that? Do they make it? Do they choose it?
No, I shouldn't be here
You're
right
you.
now.
You're
No.
it. You're the one.
The story, the memoirs, like, the writing it, it's my way of trying to hopefully spread this message. It's my hope of practicing it. It is hard every day to practice it,
Mhm,
to be in you see me as a very positive person, like,
mm,
I think one of the things, though, is that I give myself all day long. It's kinda like your kiddo went to City of Lakes Waldorf too, so you kinda know
yes.
this, right? Like, how they talk about these breathe in, breathe out moments and how the kids, like, as these little babies going into this world all day long, and they have to kind of, like, hold it all in, and so as soon as they see their mom, they go nuts, right?
Mhm,
And so that's sort of how I am, right? Like, all day long, I'm with people in my community giving, giving, giving. And, that's maybe through writing, that's maybe through working on the website, that's maybe through whatever things I'm doing, recording videos, but like it all takes its toll. And then when I go home, like, who gets the brunt? Like,
right.
so I'm still learning. I'm not, no, like, no mat no I'm still a student in all of this, right? I'm still trying
Mhm,
to figure it out, but just taking this formula and trying to figure it out, and it seems also very rooted in my culture of like Hinduism, Buddhism, of these practices, right? Like, so it feels good to be moving in that direction, but boy, do I have my days, and boy, do I have problems coming at me, and I literally was just writing and working through something right now, and I was like, I can do this with anger, or I was trying to meditate on what would be the love, strength, and awareness response to this. Like,
mm,
how would I do this? How would I go about this if I set aside my ego and I set aside my pain and tried using that methodology? And I'm still working through it, and time will heal, but I'll get there. And I think I'm getting there on how I want to respond to what's happening to me right now.
mhm,
But also thinking of it, this Shafali Sabari is a person in, I don't know, like, she's a somewhat of a celebrity parenting coach, and she said life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you.
mm,
Right? So again, I'm
mhm,
like, okay, what is this thing that's this, like, I'm getting a visual of like a cauldron and like mud getting mixed, right? What is this icky thing that I'm dealing with right now? And what is it really here calling me to do? Like, where is
mhm,
it supposed to, why is this here? Like, why is what this obstacle is a stepping stone. Where am I going?
mhm,
And so that's what I'm
mhm,
trying to figure out. Where is it trying to, which direction is it trying to send me? And so I'm not perfect. I hope that this may teach people to see their lives in a different way, but just recognize I'm still a student, still learning, still on that same path. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, and we should have a follow-up where that can happen. But, if you listen to the first episode, you probably know that I'm trying to do this wrap up at the end where I ask these rapid fire
Oh,
questions. The
yeah.
problem is the rapid fire questions I had for Larissa were like essays, and they didn't really work, so I've redesigned the rapid
Alright,
fire questions, and I'd like to throw them at you now if that's okay.
let's do it.
Trying to be super respectful of time, and we are deep in it. So we'll probably have to do another episode too. I'll probably just talk to everybody 3 or 4 times. So here we go. The rapid fire, there's sort of questions or statement. I'm asking, you'll get it. You'll get it. Okay. First one, a rule you broke this week.
It's only Tuesday. Rule
Or
I
in the
broke
last.
Yeah, I don't know. A rule I broke this week. I am no fun. Did I not break
You're
any
good. You're
rules?
good. You're
I'm
good. A
I'm a
word
good
you were
girl.
told not to say growing up.
A
A word
word
you were told you could not say growing up.
like a lot of curse words, but that flew out the window.
Yeah, I'm with you. The last thing you did that surprised yourself.
Damn, these are hard. The last thing I did that surprised myself. Honestly, I think what just came out of my mouth earlier in terms of this idea that I'm still this issue that I'm still sort of processing has surprised me a little bit. I feel like I'm in the right direction in terms of how I want to move forward, but it only just came out kind of now, which for everyone else it's very cryptic because you're like, what the hell are you talking about? But for me, I get it.
That's
um,
all that matters. That's all
but
that matters.
yeah,
One word that describes your personal definition of success.
peace.
Something you do that nobody would expect.
I don't know if people would not expect this of me, but I am a very spiritual person. So I
Mm,
do Indian chanting with a community here in Northeast Minneapolis, and I try to
wow.
go on Sundays. I grew up doing it though, so I don't know. I think like people who know me would not be surprised about it, but I love that's something that I really love to do.
Um, the best advice you ever got and who you got it from?
That would be one of my tattoos, which I don't even think I'm gonna be able to show you because it's like in such an awkward spot. I put it in a spot so that it is so that I can see it, and
For you,
for
yeah.
me, yep. And it is my dad who would always say, "Anila, don't think no." And I never understood what he freaking meant. I was just like, "What are you talking about?" Because, like, I was a smart kid and, like, look at me, like, doing all my science and my math. I'm thinking, I'm doing good in class. Like, what do you mean, don't think no? And it's only in, like, these most recent years and probably also because of the work with habit aware, right? Thinking comes from your brain. Knowing comes from your heart. Thinking comes from, again, what will people think? Making assumptions comes from assumption, comes from opinion, not from fact, not from truth. And so I finally have figured that out. And I think that is also basically awareness, right? Awareness is knowing. Awareness is knowing this. And when you're leading with that awareness, with that knowingness, then you can summon that strength to choose to pause and choose love much more easily than when you're leading with your thinking brain, which is rooted in fear, in what
Mhm,
ifs and all this other stuff, and then you're making decisions based on those fears and those what ifs, and they're talking about me in this way over here, and right, and so then you like start feeding the storyline in a negative
mhm,
way, and then your actions then become not the best of actions to make sense of it all, right? The ball just keeps getting more and more tangled instead of untangled,
mhm.
and so don't think no is the best piece of advice I have ever heard, and it took me 30-ish years to finally understand what it means.
I love that. What would you put on a billboard with no explanation?
That.
I love it. I love it. And if your life had a theme song playing right now, what would it be?
So there is a song called I Am Thankful by the Aligned Collective that a friend of mine introduced me to. And it is my theme song. Like, I was recently in Spain for 3 months, and almost every morning, she and I would get up and we would walk the boardwalk and watch the sunrise together, and I would
Mm,
listen to that song and dance on the beach waiting for her to come down, and it is just the most fulfilling song to start your day, and to just
mm.
remember and be thankful for everything that you have and everything that is coming to you. Maybe that's another thing that people don't know about me is if you put music on, I'm going to dance and be that crazy looking woman walking on Cedar Lake. That's me.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, the next time you're on, we have to talk about Spain, but I have all sorts of questions. And again, this could be a 7-hour podcast. That's it. That's the last of my questions. Your book is called Anila, Where Are Your Eyebrows? And I hope that everybody listening goes out and finds that book when it comes out in the fall and finds out where Anila's eyebrows are. Thank you so much for being here. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
you
having
so
me.
much. Just the fact that you're in the world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And this whole conversation is exactly what I had in mind when I wanted to do this, so I am so grateful. Thanks for being here. Your company is Habit Aware, your book is, Anila Wear Your Eyebrows, your nonprofit is called what again?
BFRB change makers.
BFRB Changemakers. You are awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, thank
you.
you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.